had the floor. The chair recognizes the honorable member for Kalani.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. I will refer throughout this debate about that beautiful and wonderful basketball game we had. But, Mr. Speaker, I rise on behalf of constituency Kalani in support of this business license bill. Mr. Speaker, I beg your indulgence to bear with me for a few minutes what may appear to be deviating from the bill. However, this is necessary in building up one's argument in defense of this bill, especially for the small business personnel, and especially for that group of business personnel who are vendors on the street or parks or wherever. But, Mr. Speaker, this bill allows for a complete reform of the business license, and it's the government's responsibility to improve the quality of life for its citizens, to decrease one's stress level, and at the same time to remove the multiple obstacles that one may encounter in trying to get a license, be it business or any other sector. This bill is especially important to Kalani, Mr. Speaker, because in Kalani we had done several surveys, and the results are very, very significant and pertinent to this bill and has great impact on the residents of Kalani as it brings forth how they feel about certain sectors. And, Mr. Speaker, one of the first questions one may ask, are we considered a society that follows laws, or are we a truly disciplined society? Because I remember while traveling to America, you would see a Bahamian at a traffic light, and he or she would always stop and adhere to the regulations. But at the same time here, it never happens. Red does not necessarily mean stop. One goes through, but there's a great transition when one visits the U.S. And this basically shows respect for the law and discipline. I remember, Mr. Speaker, just the other day, while sitting on the traffic light, a police vehicle was just in front of me, and the car in front pulled off, and the police vehicle did nothing except themselves waited for the light to change. And that in itself shows some degree of disrespect or indiscipline for the law. And what is very significant is a friend said to me that she experienced had the same encounter, but when she mentioned it to the relevant police authority who was there at the time, she was informed that that was not their jurisdiction, and in fact that's a traffic violation, and therefore they were not responsible for that. Then we look at what's happening with BEC, all the illegal connections that occur throughout society, and yet we don't hear much about individuals being brought before the courts and charged. And, Mr. Speaker, I remembered visiting Jamaica. When I first went to Jamaica as a student in 1975, and I found it very ironic and interesting that all the homes had bars to the windows and doors, etc. And I said, that does not happen at home, and that will never happen at home. And lo and behold, today we're undergoing the same transition. All the homes now has bars at windows and doors. So we have gone through that transition. And what was significant, especially to this particular bill, is that there were multiple street vendors throughout the Jamaican society, and especially when you went downtown, there were multiple street vendors in front of stores, and they were so cluttered and compressed together that even if you were trying to get into a store, you had difficulty getting into the store without walking over the vendors. And, Mr. Speaker, that is where an undisciplined society, what can happen in an unregulated, undisciplined society. And just as we've gone through that transition with the bars around windows and doors that I thought never could happen, we should not wait until we go through this next transition where street vendors are in front of all stores, be it Bay Street, Palmdale, or wherever, so that individuals cannot get into stores without having to walk over street vendors. And Mr. Speaker, that is referred to in the Caribbean society as taken over by higglers. Mr. Speaker, why this bill is so significant to Killarney is because we had done a survey in Killarney, and the response from the residents were they are very happy to see the government introducing so many bills. However, what is most significant and most important to them is enforcement. They felt that it was better if you introduced 5 to 10 bills that were truly enforced as opposed to 50 that was not necessarily enforced. And that was very, very important. And this bill is significant, and I think this bill is easily enforceable. Mr. Speaker, what this bill would do is once a small business sector is licensed, those individuals can now be introduced into the formal financial or business sector, business society, so that now they can make contribution to national insurance and whatever, and of course take part in the benefits of the national insurance. But Speaker, just last week, over the weekend, we were all engaged in a basketball match. And what was very significant to see that in this stadium there were no PLP and there was no FNM. We all worked together as one, as a team. And it sent a great message to the populace. And they wonder, why can't we continually work together in some instances as a team? And this bill is one of those that we must work as a team to better the Bahamian populace, to improve the quality of life, and to have proper enforcement and regulation. And Mr. Speaker, every time individuals say something positive, or individuals is applauded for something great or something outstanding, you would notice that what happens is they always clap their hand. And that is congratulating individuals for the greatness that they've done. And you would notice, Mr. Speaker, that one hand cannot clap. It requires two. And that's exactly what this bill requires. This bill requires for all to be on board to improve the Bahamian society. The bill is a one-stop shop in that rather than having a license for this, a license for liquor, a license for restaurant, etc., it's a one-stop shop. It repeals all other business license. It repeals the Shop License Act, the Music and Dancing License Act, the Registration of Business Names Act, and of course, the Liquor License Act. But Mr. Speaker, as a health personnel, when I drive through most of the streets, I see on the side of the roads vendors, be it fish vendors, fruit vendors, crab vendors, other type of vendors. But what is significant from a health perspective is vendors selling fish without proper regulations, without proper licensing. If you move outside into the environment today, you would notice how hot it is today. And that heat generated can cause immediate decay or putrefaction of that fish, which means, Mr. Speaker, with improper regulations and improper storage or maintenance, that fish can undergo changes very, very rapidly. So when you believe that you're getting quality fish, in a matter of a day or so, you now find yourself having food poisoning. That's in an unregulated society, Mr. Speaker, and that's what we find today with vendors today. But we want to introduce something so that you can regulate and improve the quality of the product and improve their circumstances so that the vendor is placed in a better position to make even more. Mr. Speaker,